Hello, we're here on Tell It How It Is. We're here with W.E.B. Du Bois and Cornel West, and we're going to be discussing theories of race and racism. Hope you enjoy the show. So, Mr. West, my first question to you is, what are your views of race and racism?
Well, I think racism in America is based on, the issues and the inequalities within America, not just among races, but among people in general. I think we have to take a look at ourselves as a minority, and we have to look at, white America has to take a look at themselves because the government is, there's flaws in the government, there's flaws in the justice system, and without making corrections to those things first, we can't make corrections, in between the color line.
So, Mr. Du Bois, the same question goes to you.
People of color are allowed and expected to look at white people from the margins, but white people are free to explore and do whatever they want, but they don't look on our side and how we perceive everything on the color side. So going on with these Jim Crow laws and segregation, they feel like these things aren't wrong and that this is what needs to be done for us to live in equality when really we're separated, because how could we make anything equal if everything is separated?
So, Mr. Du Bois, you mentioned the Jim Crow laws. Can you explain some historical events that led you to these theories?
One recent event that led me to these theories are the Plessy versus Ferguson case, which was basically a black man who was only 1/8 black, actually. He was denied to get a seat on the first class of the train. So I feel like these and all these other situations, just like the Brown versus Board of Education, Brown versus Board of Ed case, are some of the prime examples of the things that we're going through now, which are so unjust in the education system and just in general. So I like those all.
So, Mr. West, the same question goes to you.
Well, I think that some of the historical events that, pop into my head are the civil rights movement and the leadership by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because these actions have put, the inequalities of black people and minorities in America on Front Street, and it has, opened the eyes of America as to what is really going on and the unfair treatment. And I don't think that. Shit. All right, well, we could just stop it there. That was good, right?
So, Mr. Du Bois, you seem to have a lot in common with Mr. West over here. What do you feel his theory is lacking in terms of just like how race and racism has come about?
I do feel that Mr. West does bring up very critical points in his theory, but I do feel like a lot of what he says is contradicting, what my theory is about. I feel like we don't live in a post-race society. I feel like we're still bonded and we're still strapped down as individuals. How could we feel like we're free when we still go into a store and we still get looked at, when we're still getting judged, when we still everything is just basically still the same. It's still unequal. It's still things that we haven't grown from the 1950s that we're still facing right now in 2012. So I feel like, when we figure that we're still in bondage, that's when we will have these new ideas and we will be able to grow in them, and change things.
So, Mr. West, Mr. Du Bois brought up a good idea. He said that the reason we have race and racism is still an issue today is because it's still a continuation of slavery. How would you combat that theory?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of us being slaves or being the fact that we were slaves. I think that we've, fought to get out of the trenches and, we ended slavery, but we have to now focus on becoming equal with the white community and the white society. We have to instill in our kids that the image that are being put upon us are not fitting. And there's a hierarchy amongst black people, and we need to realize that we're all equal. And then once we realize that we're equal with each other, we'll realize that we can be equal with white America. And we have to deal with new racism too. There's a point in white America that things are being placed on our shoulders that we can't handle, and the images that are being forced upon us are really hurting us. That's it.
So, Mr. Du Bois, my next question to you would be, how can you relate your theories to the 21st century?
I feel like our first thing we need to do is just do more integration amongst whites, amongst blacks, amongst Latinos. I feel like we're still separated. And second, I feel like we're still bound in the slavery idea that we're still slaves. So once we get out the idea that we're still slaves, that's when we could move on as more as a people.
So, Mr. West, Mr. Du Bois brought up another good point. He said that to combat race and racism in the 21st century, we basically need time to heal. How do you think we would be able to combat race and racism?
Along with what Mr. Du Bois said, I think we need to have a face on the movement, as there was with the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King Jr. We have to have someone who is not worried about losing their personal gains, who doesn't mind, taking the forefront, taking all of the heat. And there also has to be a well-planned and sturdy support system behind them with people who are also not afraid of losing their personal gains. And once we instill that within each other, then we can move forward as a people.
If there's one thing that I have to say, it would have to say we have to stop living through the white man. We have to stop doing things that will feel like that will make them better and start looking on ourselves and feel like what are the things that's going to make us happy at the end of the day, because we aren't living through slavery anymore. And I think at the end of the day, we always have that in the back of our head, like, how can I seem better to a white person instead of how can we seem better to us? And that's it.
Mr. West, if there was one thing that you could say to the rest of the world, what would it be?
I think that we have to instill a feeling of worthiness among black people so that we feel that we are worthy to be treated equally and that we are worthy to be helped from being oppressed, because that's what we have been in the recent years in America. And without that, we also need a voice of someone who's able to motivate the people and get them going to believe that they don't have to be scared and remove that feeling of fear and traumatization. And we have to do, the voice that is doing that has to promote all of these things while promoting justice the entire time and not revenge, because that's the key. We can't promote justice while promoting revenge at the same time. So we have to, that's it, just cut it there.
Mr. Du Bois and Mr. West, I just want to thank you very much for coming on today's show. You definitely were able to enlighten us with your theories on race and racism, and you also brought up the fact that it's still a problem even today, even though it is in different forms. Hopefully society can move past this so that one day we can see equality. Again, thank you very much.